The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, a golden sea of sand under the blazing sun. Waves of heat rose from the ground, bending the horizon and making distant dunes appear like mirages. Marcus Hale adjusted the wide brim of his hat and squinted at the landscape. He had always loved the sea, the sound of waves crashing against ships and the endless blue stretching far beyond the eye. But now, standing in this vast desert, he sought something different: peace, solitude, and maybe a hint of adventure. Marcus was a retired naval officer, once commanding ships on missions that spanned oceans. For years he had faced storms, navigated treacherous waters, and made decisions that weighed heavily on him. Retirement had given him freedom, but also a sense of emptiness. The desert was his escape from the life he knew so well, a place where no orders, no schedules, and no expectations existed. Here he could think, walk, and feel the world around him without interruption. As he trudged through the sand, Marcus noticed something unusual. A sharp glint caught his eye, reflecting the sun's rays. He paused, shielding his eyes. At first, he thought it might be a piece of broken glass or a scrap of metal. But the closer he got, the more his curiosity grew. He moved cautiously, brushing sand off a strange metallic object that jutted from a dune. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The metal was smooth but aged, covered in intricate designs and symbols. The shape? It looked like a ship, but not any ship from modern history. Its hull curved gracefully, almost like it had been designed to float on air rather than water. Marcus knelt down, his fingers tracing the cold surface. He could feel faint vibrations as if the object held some hidden energy. Impossible, he whispered to himself. This shouldn't exist here. Despite the heat and the harsh terrain, Marcus felt a strange pull toward the ship. Something deep inside him, a feeling he had not experienced since his first command at sea, told him he was meant to be here. Slowly, he started clearing the sand from around the entrance, revealing more of the mysterious vessel. The opening seemed to invite him in, a dark hollow leading into unknown depths. He hesitated for a moment, his heart beating faster. Adventure had always come with risks, and instinct told him to be careful. But curiosity outweighed caution. Taking a deep breath, Marcus stepped inside. The air was cool, a stark contrast to the scorching desert outside. Soft humming lights flickered along the walls, illuminating corridors that seemed impossibly large for a ship so buried. Marcus ran his hand along a control panel, and the metal felt smooth, almost alive. Symbols he did not recognize glowed faintly under his touch. Suddenly, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber. Marcus jumped back, startled. "Awaiting orders, Admiral." After 500 years, his mouth went dry. The voice was clear, calm, and filled with authority. Yet there was something strange about it, almost familiar. Marcus froze. He looked around, expecting to see someone or something, but the ship was empty. He shook his head. "I must be imagining this," he muttered. But the voice came again, repeating the same words, unwavering and steady. Marcus felt a strange mix of fear and awe. He had spent his life giving orders to men and commanding ships across oceans, but now a vessel that had been hidden for centuries recognized him, called him Admiral. He could hardly understand it. Yet he could not ignore the feeling that destiny had brought him here. With careful steps, he moved deeper into the ship. The corridors led him to a large central chamber, its walls lined with panels, buttons, and levers. In the center was a holographic map glowing faintly. It displayed oceans, lands, and coastlines, some familiar, some he did not recognize. The map seemed ancient, yet the technology was far beyond anything he had seen in his naval career. Marcus traced his finger along the holographic projection. Names of seas and ports appeared, many from history books, some that had vanished from maps long ago. He realized the ship was old, very old, but preserved in a way that defied explanation. It was as if time had paused for this vessel, keeping it ready for a leader who would come centuries later. A sense of responsibility began to settle over him. He had spent years training to lead, to make decisions that affected lives, to navigate uncertainty. And now, standing here in this desert, facing a ship that had waited 500 years for him, he understood that his purpose was far from over. Somehow he had been chosen, and the ship was waiting for his command. He moved toward a central console, pressing buttons almost instinctively. The ship hummed louder, lights flickering in response to his touch. Panels slid open, revealing compartments filled with charts, tools, and records. Each item told a story, a history frozen in time. Marcus realized the ship was more than a vessel. It was a guardian of knowledge, a bridge between past and present waiting for someone to awaken it. Hours passed without him noticing. The sun had begun its descent, painting the desert in shades of orange and red. Marcus finally stepped back from the console, taking a moment to absorb the enormity of what he had discovered. His life had been full of command and adventure, but nothing like this. The desert was quiet around him, but inside the ship, history seemed to stir, ready to move again. Marcus knew he had a choice. He could leave, report the discovery, and return to his quiet life. Or he could step fully into the role the ship had given him, face whatever mysteries and challenges awaited, and embrace a destiny that spanned centuries. He stood silently in the central chamber, listening to the hum of the ship and the faint whispers that seemed to echo in his mind. Somewhere deep inside, a voice told him that his journey was only beginning. The desert outside was vast and empty, but within this ancient vessel, an adventure unlike any he had known awaited. Marcus Hale took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history and the thrill of discovery. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive, and the ship waited, patient and silent, ready to follow its admiral's orders after 500 years. The desert night was quiet, but inside the ship, light and energy pulsed softly as if it were alive. Marcus Hale could feel the hum beneath his feet, a vibration that seemed to respond to his presence. The words "awaiting orders, Admiral" echoed in his mind, repeating with a rhythm that felt both ancient and urgent. He took a cautious step forward. What are you?" he whispered half to himself. The ship responded with a soft whir, panels lighting up as if answering him. He ran his hand over a smooth control surface, and suddenly, the holographic map in the center of the room shifted. Oceans shimmered and moved, coastlines changed, and tiny dots appeared on the water. Ships, perfectly formed and waiting. Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. "Ships like this one?" he asked. The ship seemed to hum in agreement. The dots on the map blinked in a precise rhythm, each pulse like a heartbeat. For the first time, Marcus realized this was not just a ship. It was a command center, a vessel built to lead a fleet that had slept for centuries. He stepped closer to a console and noticed strange inscriptions along the edges. They glowed faintly when he touched them, revealing words he could somehow understand.
"Fleet in stasis.
Awaiting leadership. Mission to safeguard history." Marcus blinked. He could not explain how he understood the words, but he did. It was as if the ship spoke a language that bypassed thought and went straight to understanding. History itself was whispering to him, revealing secrets it had kept hidden for 5 centuries. He pressed another button, and the lights in the chamber brightened. A large panel slid open, revealing a cylindrical chamber filled with what looked like sleeping pods. Each pod held a ship or part of a ship, preserved perfectly as though time had stopped around them. The sight made Marcus's heart pound. These were no ordinary ships, they were vessels of power. Technology far beyond anything he had ever seen, capable of traveling great distances, navigating storms with precision, and defending what mattered most. A soft mechanical voice spoke again. "Awaken when ready, Admiral. The fleet responds to your command." Marcus hesitated. He had spent his life commanding crews, making decisions that affected lives and leading missions across treacherous waters. But this was unlike anything he had ever faced. The responsibility was immense. Yet deep down he felt a pull, a connection that he could not deny. Slowly he placed his hand on a small lever at the edge of the console. The pods began to glow one by one. Lights traced the shape of the ships inside, and Marcus realized that activating them was like waking a sleeping giant. The hum of the ship grew louder, resonating through the chamber. Dust particles shimmered in the glow, dancing in the air like tiny stars. A soft chime echoed through the room, and Marcus felt a wave of energy. It was not dangerous, but it carried a sense of expectation, as if the ship itself was testing him. He understood then that leadership was not just about giving orders. It was about responsibility, awareness, and understanding the weight of what one controls. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered the men he had led, the storms he had faced, and the decisions he had made that saved lives. All of those experiences, all of that knowledge was here for a purpose. The ship had called him, recognizing not just his bloodline but his capability. He opened his eyes and pressed a series of buttons in a careful sequence. The pods opened, revealing the ships in full view. They were magnificent, sleek, and ancient, yet perfectly preserved. Marcus walked among them, touching their polished hulls. The metal was cool beneath his fingers, humming softly, responding to his presence. It was as if each ship recognized him as their leader, waiting patiently for the moment to sail again. Hours passed like minutes. Marcus explored every corridor, examining control panels, charts, and maps. The ship displayed projections of seas and continents that had changed over centuries, showing him places that were forgotten or hidden from history. He saw cities that no longer existed, islands lost beneath the waves, and coastlines reshaped by time. Through it all, the ship spoke to him in subtle ways, guiding him, teaching him, and reminding him of the duty that awaited. It was a patient mentor, offering knowledge without judgment, and Marcus felt a connection that went beyond explanation. The lines between past, present, and future seemed to blur, and he understood that this ship and its fleet were part of a story much larger than himself. By the time the first light of dawn touched the desert, Marcus felt a shift within himself. Fear and doubt were replaced with determination. He realized that he could not ignore this calling. The fleet had waited centuries for a leader, and now that leader stood before it. He stepped onto a platform in the center of the chamber. The holographic map rose before him, showing every ship, every location, and every course that could be taken. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. But it was not oppressive. It was empowering. He was no longer a man merely surviving the quiet of retirement. He was an admiral once more, chosen by fate to guide a fleet that had waited 500 years. The voice spoke again, soft and steady. "Admiral, the fleet awaits your command." Marcus took a deep breath. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. There were mysteries to uncover, challenges to face, and decisions that would affect not just him but history itself. Yet he also knew that this was where he belonged. With a steady hand, he pressed a final lever. The hum of the ship rose to a resonant tone, and the ships in the pod shimmered with energy, awakening from centuries of slumber. Marcus watched as the fleet responded to his presence, ready to follow his command. The desert outside remained quiet, the wind stirring the sand in gentle waves. But inside the ship, history had awakened and a new chapter was beginning. Marcus Hale, once a retired naval officer, now stood as the admiral of a fleet that had waited half a millennium. For the first time in a long while, Marcus felt alive, not just with the thrill of discovery, but with purpose. The ship had chosen him, and he was ready to answer its call. The desert was vast, empty, and timeless, yet within it lay a power and knowledge that would change everything. And as the hum of the awakened fleet filled the chamber, Marcus knew that his journey had only just begun. The ship had awakened, but more importantly, so had he. The morning sun cast long shadows over the desert, but inside the ancient ship, Marcus Hale felt no warmth. The hum of the engines filled the air, steady and reassuring, as if the vessel itself was alive and breathing. The fleet rested in their pods, silent yet ready. Marcus could still feel the weight of the past pressing on him. 5 centuries of waiting, of lost history, now placed in his hands. He moved to the central console, where the holographic map shimmered with projections of oceans, continents, and islands, some familiar, some lost to time. As he studied the charts, a soft voice spoke, calm and patient, carrying information directly into his mind. The fleet was hidden to protect the world's knowledge. Its mission: safeguard civilizations and preserve history from the forces that sought to destroy it. Marcus's brow furrowed. Forces seeking to destroy history? That sounded like something out of a legend or an old naval tale. Yet the ship's calm certainty left no doubt in his mind. He leaned closer to the console, tracing lines of ancient trade routes and strategic positions that no modern maps recorded. The ship was a repository of lost knowledge, a guardian waiting for the right hand to guide it. The panels lit up, revealing more about the fleet's past. Marcus watched as holograms projected scenes from 5 centuries ago, battles at sea, storms that swallowed ships, and a fleet moving with perfect coordination. He saw admirals giving orders, their faces strong and determined, guiding vessels to protect treasures of knowledge, art, and science. Then, just as suddenly, the images froze. The fleet disappeared into hidden ports, leaving the world to believe they had been lost to time. Marcus felt a chill. 500 years? All of it waiting for me, he whispered. The voice replied softly, without judgment. The fleet recognizes its leader. You are the descendant of those who commanded it. History has preserved its waiting for your arrival." His heart pounded. It was incredible and terrifying. Marcus had spent his life leading ships, but never anything like this. The responsibility was immense. This was not just about commanding a fleet. It was about protecting centuries of history, knowledge, and culture from being lost forever. And now, somehow, it was his duty to continue the mission. The console displayed the names of the original admirals, and Marcus recognized a familiar family crest among them, one that had been passed down through his lineage. He traced the symbol with his finger, feeling a deep connection to those long-dead leaders. It was not coincidence that he stood here now. Blood and history intertwined, guiding him to fulfill a role that had been waiting for centuries. A soft chime sounded, and a new projection appeared, a detailed simulation of the fleet in motion. Marcus could see each ship respond to commands, each one operating with flawless precision. The fleet was designed for efficiency and protection, able to navigate treacherous waters, evade danger, and preserve what mattered most. It was more than power. It was purpose. Marcus realized that to command the fleet, he needed more than knowledge. He needed strategy, patience, and moral judgment. Each decision would matter, not just for him, but for the world. The ship was teaching him, preparing him for challenges that lay ahead. He spent hours exploring the ship's archives. He found logs of ancient discoveries, maps of lost civilizations, and records of missions completed centuries ago. Each entry was a lesson in leadership, courage, and wisdom. Marcus felt as though the fleet itself was mentoring him, guiding his mind to understand the complexity of the mission. As the day wore on, Marcus noticed a small room tucked away behind the main chamber. Inside, he found a collection of personal items belonging to the original admirals, journals, medals, and letters written to their descendants. One letter, addressed to a future leader, spoke directly to him. "The world will forget us, but knowledge must endure. To the one who comes after, lead with courage, wisdom, and honor. The fleet waits for your command. Protect what cannot be replaced." Marcus held the letter in his hands, feeling the weight of history settle over him. He realized that the fleet had not only been waiting for a leader, it had been waiting for someone who understood the value of knowledge, history, and duty. The responsibility was immense, but Marcus felt ready. The ship hummed around him, lights pulsing in a rhythm that seemed alive. Marcus moved to the console again, tracing the fleet's positions on the map. The pods were ready, but he needed to test the fleet's responsiveness to ensure that the ancient vessels could follow his command after centuries of dormancy. He took a deep breath and pressed a command button. The hum grew louder, resonating through the chamber. One by one, the pods responded, lights tracing the hulls of the ships. The fleet moved as if awakening from a deep sleep, aligning perfectly with Marcus's direction. The holographic map showed their positions shifting in perfect coordination. A surge of pride and awe filled him. He was not just commanding a fleet. He was continuing a legacy, connecting past and present in a way few could understand. The ships responded with precision, and Marcus realized that leadership was more than orders. It was connection, trust, and respect. Hours passed, and Marcus continued to explore the ship's knowledge. He found information about ancient cultures, lost technologies, and natural phenomena that had shaped the world. Every discovery made him understand the importance of his role. This fleet was not just power. It was preservation, guardianship, and history itself. As night fell over the desert, Marcus stood in the central chamber looking at the awakened fleet. The hum of engines filled the room, and the holographic map glowed softly. He felt a sense of calm mixed with determination. The past had waited patiently, and now it was time for action. Marcus knew challenges lay ahead. The world had changed over 500 years, and the fleet's mission would not be simple. Yet, for the first time in a long while, he felt a deep certainty. He was ready. The fleet had awakened, but more importantly, he had awakened to his destiny. The voice spoke once more, gentle yet commanding. "Admiral, the fleet is ready to follow. Your orders will shape history." Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the responsibility settle over him. The journey ahead would test his courage, wisdom, and leadership. But he was prepared. The desert outside was quiet, timeless and empty. But inside the ancient ship, a legacy that had waited 500 years had begun to move once more. And Marcus Hale, once a retired naval officer, now stood as the leader of a fleet that bridged centuries, ready to continue a mission that history had entrusted to him. The desert was calm, the wind gently shifting the sands as the sun rose, casting warm light across the endless dunes. Inside the ancient ship, Marcus Hale stood at the central console, looking at the holographic map of the awakened fleet. Every vessel pulsed with energy, ready to follow his command. After days of testing, learning, and understanding, the moment had come. The mission that had waited 500 years for a leader was about to begin. Marcus took a deep breath. The responsibility was immense, but he no longer felt fear. He had spent hours learning the ship's capabilities, studying the fleet's history, and connecting with the legacy of the admirals who had come before him. Their courage, wisdom, and foresight had been passed down to him, and now it was his turn to lead. "Fleet, prepare for deployment," Marcus commanded. The ships responded instantly, lights flashing, engines humming, and the pods opening fully. One by one, the vessels rose from their chambers, revealing sleek hulls and intricate designs, shining as if they had just been built. Marcus could not help but feel a sense of awe. This was more than technology. This was history, alive and waiting to serve. The voice of the ship spoke softly, almost like a guiding mentor. "Admiral, the hidden fleet awaits your orders. Your leadership will shape the mission and preserve the knowledge of centuries." Marcus nodded. "Then we begin," he said, and he issued his first command. "All ships rise from the desert and form formation. Maintain coordination and prepare to follow my lead." The fleet moved with precision. The desert floor vibrated as each vessel lifted, gliding smoothly over the sand. Marcus watched as history came alive before his eyes. Ships that had slept for centuries now moving together under his guidance. It was a moment of triumph, but he knew the mission was only beginning. The map displayed ancient ports and hidden locations, areas where knowledge, art, and history had been preserved. Marcus's task was to ensure that these treasures remained safe, protected from forces that could exploit them. The fleet's purpose was not power or conquest, it was preservation, guardianship, and the protection of what humanity had created over centuries. Marcus guided the fleet toward the first hidden site. The path was challenging, with narrow valleys and sudden sand ridges. The ships moved in perfect formation, responding to every command with precision. Marcus felt a thrill he had not experienced in years, a mixture of excitement, responsibility, and connection. The fleet was not just metal and technology, it was history itself, and he was its guardian. As they approached the site, Marcus activated a scanning system. The holographic map revealed ancient artifacts and structures hidden beneath the sand. Some were remnants of civilizations lost to time, others were records of discoveries long forgotten. The fleet hovered over the locations, preparing to secure the areas. Marcus gave the command: "Deploy protective shields and begin extraction of historical artifacts. Handle all with care." The ships responded flawlessly, lowering equipment to recover and preserve the treasures. Each movement was precise, as if the fleet had trained for this moment across centuries. Marcus watched with pride and awe, realizing the true importance of his role. Hours passed, and the fleet completed the first mission. Marcus felt a deep sense of accomplishment, but he also understood the journey was far from over. Other hidden sites awaited, each presenting unique challenges and requiring his judgment. Yet for the first time in a long while, Marcus felt at peace. He was fulfilling a purpose larger than himself, honoring a legacy that had waited centuries for a leader. As the day turned to evening, Marcus guided the fleet to another hidden location. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the desert in shades of red and gold. The ships glowed softly under the fading light, their energy pulsing like a heartbeat. Marcus stood at the central console, issuing commands, monitoring progress, and marveling at the synchronization of the fleet. Suddenly, the ship projected a message from the original admirals. Holographic figures appeared, faces wise and serious, their voices echoing in the chamber. "Admiral Marcus Hale," they said, "you have fulfilled the first steps of your mission with skill, courage, and wisdom. Remember, the fleet is more than vessels. It is history, knowledge, and responsibility. Lead with honor. Protect what cannot be replaced, and guide the world toward understanding and preservation." Marcus bowed his head, feeling a deep connection to the admirals. He understood that their wisdom was now part of him, guiding his decisions and strengthening his leadership. "I will not fail," he whispered. I will honor your legacy and safeguard what you protected for centuries. Night fell over the desert, and Marcus watched the fleet move in formation, each ship responding perfectly to his commands. He realized that he was not alone. The fleet was alive in its own way, connected to him, trusting him and ready to act. The desert outside seemed quiet and empty, but inside history was awake, moving forward under his guidance. Over the next days, Marcus led the fleet to uncover more hidden sites, protect lost knowledge, and preserve artifacts that had survived centuries of neglect and danger. Each mission strengthened his connection with the ships, and each success reaffirmed his purpose. The fleet responded to him not just with precision but with loyalty and trust, as if understanding that their mission and his leadership were inseparable. Marcus reflected on the journey. He had come to the desert seeking solitude, perhaps adventure, and certainly escape from his past life. Yet he had found something far greater, a destiny, a purpose, and a connection to history that transcended time. He realized that leadership was not about power or glory, but about responsibility, courage, and the protection of what mattered most. Finally, after securing the last of the hidden locations, Marcus commanded the fleet to return to the central chamber. The ships settled back into their pods, energy flowing gently through the ship, humming in quiet satisfaction. Marcus stood in the center, taking a deep breath. Feeling the weight of what had been accomplished, the ship spoke once more, softly and with reverence. Admiral, the fleet has fulfilled its mission under your guidance. History is preserved, knowledge is protected, and the legacy of centuries continues. You have proven yourself worthy of command, and your leadership ensures that what has waited 500 years remains safe for generations to come. Marcus closed his eyes, letting the words sink in. He had fulfilled a duty that had waited half a millennium. He had led a fleet across time, preserving history and knowledge and honoring the legacy of those who had come before. The desert outside was still and quiet, timeless in its beauty, but inside the fleet had moved history forward, guided by a man chosen centuries later to carry a mission beyond imagination. For a moment, Marcus simply stood there, feeling the hum of the fleet beneath him, the connection to the admirals, and the knowledge that he had become part of something eternal. He had started this journey seeking purpose, but he had found so much more: legacy, responsibility, and the fulfillment of a destiny that had waited 500 years. As dawn approached, casting soft light through the ship's windows, Marcus Hale smiled. The fleet had returned to rest, but its legacy lived on. He had answered the call, preserved history, and embraced the role of admiral, carrying forward the trust of centuries past. The desert remained quiet, yet Marcus knew that history, guided by the fleet, was alive and moving forward. And somewhere deep within the hum of the ship, the whisper returned one final time, gentle and approving. Awaiting orders. Admiral, always ready. After 500 years. Marcus Hale stepped back, feeling the weight of the past, the present, and the future all at once. He had fulfilled his mission, embraced his destiny, and ensured that history would remain safe under his watch. The desert stretched endlessly around him, but inside the ancient ship, a legacy had awakened, moved, and endured, guided by the hands of a man chosen centuries later to complete what history had waited for. The desert sun rose slowly, painting the sands in shades of gold and orange. Outside the world was quiet, but inside the ancient ship, energy pulsed with a life of its own. Marcus Hale walked the corridors, feeling the hum of the fleet beneath him. Every pod, every ship seemed to acknowledge his presence, waiting for him to lead. Today was the day he would test his leadership. It was one thing to awaken the fleet, to see them respond to his commands, but it was another to guide them through action. The ship's voice spoke softly, as if encouraging him. Admiral, begin the exercises. The fleet responds to your orders. Marcus nodded, steadying his breath. He moved to the central console and activated the simulation mode. Holographic waters appeared before him, oceans stretching endlessly with islands, reefs, and ancient ports. The ships glowed on the map, waiting to follow his instructions. All right, Marcus said aloud. We start with basic maneuvers. He issued simple commands. Move forward, turn port, turn starboard. Each ship responded perfectly, aligning with precision. Marcus's confidence grew. The fleet's responsiveness was remarkable, a testament to the craftsmanship of the ancient builders and the intelligence embedded in their design. But the exercises were only the beginning. The ship displayed scenarios designed to challenge him. Violent storms, unpredictable currents, and hidden reefs. Marcus realized that to lead the fleet successfully, he would need not only strategy but patience and foresight. A single misstep could cost the mission or the fleet itself. Hours passed as Marcus navigated the simulations, testing each ship's capabilities and learning their limits. He discovered that some vessels were faster, some stronger, and others equipped with tools he had never imagined. Each had a purpose, and together they formed a network of strength and intelligence. Then came the first real test. The simulation projected a desert storm, winds howling, sand shifting, and visibility dropping to almost nothing. Marcus had to guide the fleet through treacherous waters while avoiding obstacles that could damage the ships. His heart raced. This was more than theory. It was a challenge of instinct, patience, and decision-making. He took a deep breath and began. All ships reduce speed. Follow the northern current. Maintain formation. The fleet responded instantly, adjusting their positions with precision. Marcus guided them around hidden reefs, through narrow channels and past obstacles, each movement deliberate and calculated. The ship's voice offered guidance. Admiral, consider the currents. Use the fleet's strengths. Marcus adjusted his commands, using the faster ships to scout ahead and the stronger ones to protect the formation. The simulation shifted, representing changing conditions. Gusts of wind battered the holographic fleet, but Marcus remained calm. He relied on his naval experience, intuition, and the lessons of the original admirals whose knowledge the ship had preserved. Finally, the storm passed. Marcus exhaled, a sense of accomplishment flooding through him. The fleet had responded flawlessly, proving their readiness and his ability to lead them. The ship's hum seemed to vibrate with approval, and Marcus felt a deep connection with the ancient vessels around him. But the challenges did not end. The simulation changed again, this time showing rival fleets approaching, ships with unknown designs threatening the ancient knowledge the fleet had been guarding for centuries. Marcus's eyes narrowed. This was the real test, not just navigation, but strategy, defense, and protection of history itself. He studied the map carefully. The rival fleet moved swiftly, attempting to divide his forces. Marcus had to act quickly. He gave orders to his ships: form a defensive line. Protect the archives. Use speed to outmaneuver the enemy. The fleet responded with astonishing coordination, aligning perfectly and executing maneuvers Marcus had only imagined in training exercises. He realized that leadership was more than giving commands. It was about understanding strengths, predicting challenges, and making decisions with precision. Every ship, every crew, was an extension of his judgment. Failure was not an option. As the simulation progressed, Marcus faced unexpected complications: sudden whirlpools, shifting sandbars, and hidden traps in the water. Each obstacle tested his ability to adapt, to think quickly, and to remain calm under pressure. With every challenge, Marcus grew more confident. He felt the knowledge of the past guiding him, as if the admirals who had commanded this fleet centuries ago were whispering in his mind. Hours turned into evening as Marcus completed the exercises. Sweat glistened on his forehead, but he felt exhilarated. The fleet had responded perfectly, their loyalty unquestionable, and he had proven to himself that he could lead them. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. Real-world challenges awaited, and the mission of the fleet was far from complete. The ship's voice spoke again, calm and reassuring. Admiral, you have demonstrated skill, patience, and wisdom. The fleet is ready for action. Remember, leadership is not only about command, it is about protection, knowledge, and honor. Marcus nodded, understanding the depth of those words. The fleet was a tool of immense power, but with it came responsibility. It was not just about moving ships across oceans. It was about preserving history, safeguarding knowledge, and honoring the legacy of those who had come before him. He walked among the pods, touching each ship's hull. "We are ready," he said quietly. "History has waited for us. We will not fail." The ship hummed softly, lights pulsing in response to his words. Marcus felt a sense of unity with the fleet, a bond that went beyond metal and technology. It was loyalty, trust, and purpose, all wrapped into a silent promise that they would follow his lead. As night fell over the desert, Marcus stood at the central console, looking out at the holographic oceans before him. The fleet was ready, the lessons learned, and the challenges faced. He knew that tomorrow, the real mission would begin. The awakening of other hidden ships, the journey to protect lost knowledge, and the confrontation with forces that had waited centuries to challenge them. Yet for the first time in years, Marcus felt completely alive. He had faced storms, battles, and uncertainty before, but nothing like this. The fleet was more than vessels, it was history itself entrusted to him, and he was ready to lead, guide, and protect it no matter what lay ahead. With a deep breath, Marcus Hale stepped back from the console. The desert outside remained quiet, timeless, and empty. But inside the ancient ship, a legacy that had waited 500 years was alive, moving, and ready to follow the orders of its admiral. And Marcus, once a retired naval officer seeking solitude, now embraced his destiny, prepared to face the ultimate test of leadership.